Well, this was an odd one. I negotiated to not get paid. I spent time negotiating so that I would not get paid on a deal. Yep, that's the truth. You see, I got a phone call from my seller. We're 2 weeks away from closing. And he says, I can't sell my house. I can't move. And I'm like, whoa, blindsided because he was buying another property. He was moving. He was excited. He had made all the steps that he needed to make to get to closing. He was excited. But just the night before, I thought he wanted to move. That next morning, he calls me and says, I cannot move. It's just too hard on my body. I'm not getting any younger, and I just know in my heart that I need to stay put. And I was like, well, I'll do everything I can to help you. But there's a buyer on the other end of this deal that's out of their apartment. They've got a lot of expenses. I can't promise you they're going to be very happy. I can't promise you that they're going to let you out of this deal. And it could end up in a lawsuit. Yeah, I know, but you know what? I just can't sell. I get it. So I said to him, I go, do you need some time to think about it? Maybe we can, discuss this later in the day. And I wasn't saying that for me because I didn't really care if he closed or not. I wanted what was right for him. And he's like, yeah, I don't think I do. I go, what's your gut tell you? Because your gut's usually right. And he said, my gut says I need to stay. I need to stay. So I had a conversation with the other agent, and she was understandably pretty upset because her client didn't have anywhere to go. Her client had expenses, paid for inspection, paid for appraisal, bought new appliances. She was ready to move in. She got out of her lease. And I had to tell him, not going to happen. So the agent on the other side, we had a good conversation. She wasn't mad at me. But she said, why don't you go talk to him? Let's give it the day. And I'm like, well, I already gave it the day, but yeah, I'll go sit down with him. So I went down to his place and I sat down, and actually I didn't even need to sit down. I walked in and he's like, I got out of my contract in my other place. I'm really sorry about this. I just cannot move. And I was like, all right, well, it sounds like you're very, very sure about this, understanding that, you could potentially get sued. And once we cancel this contract and you don't move, I mean, I can't stop them from suing you. He's like, I understand completely. I know I put some people out on this deal and I feel really bad, but I just can't move. I'm like, all right, well, let me see what I can do, because now it's time for me to negotiate to not get paid. So I called the other agent, and it took about a week. We went back and forth, back and forth. That client wanted this much. My client didn't want to do that much. We negotiated for an entire week to not get paid. Now, we came to an agreement. The seller, he knew he made a mistake and it was a costly one, and he wrote a check so that he could stay in his home, which sounds weird, but when you're under contract, less than 2 weeks away from closing, you can't just back out. But he did, and he knew it was wrong, and he did right by the buyer. He gave the buyer enough money to make up for the expenses and maybe a little bit more. But at the end of the day, I met with an attorney before I met with him just to make sure I knew all the ramifications so I could advise him properly. And that attorney said, you know what, it'd probably be easier for him to just move. I was like, I understand that, but it's not happening. You're not telling a 70-year-old man, you got to go. So we had the conversation, we negotiated, we got him out of the contract. And that was all to not get paid. I could have gone after my expenses because legally he was tied to the contract. I actually probably could have fought for my commissions, but that's not the right thing to do. That's not what I did. But yeah, I helped him out. I did not get paid, and I'm all right with that, because you know what? It's my job to help my client get the result that they want. And the result at that time was to not have to move. And that's what we did. So it's not always rainbows and sunshine. Sometimes we have to fight for things even though we don't get paid.